shop. We had a customer come by, and he's got two drive shafts that he's brought us, and they're both a little bit too long. So we're going to start off with this one. These are fairly simple to do. You just want to go back to the original weld and cut dead center a bit and take it loose from there, and they'll give you a clean edge to start with, and then we'll take off the length that he needs and set it back in. And once you take these apart, it's actually built like a little socket. It'll fit down in there and basically square itself up. But of course, as always, we'll triple check that and make sure that's all good. But we're going to get started on this one, and then we have a little bit longer one that we're actually going to have to cut right in the middle. I don't like to do that, but the way it's made, we pretty well don't have any other choice. So we're going to get started on that. See what we can do with it. And one of the key things, if you're doing a drive shaft, is to look at the alignment on the yokes and make sure when you put it back together, it's exactly like you took it apart. So I'm going to get suited up. We're going to start cutting this apart and see what we got. I'm just shocking it a little bit. Most times that'll show up that you've gotten through. You'll start seeing a little crack. You don't have to be there. It is. See, you can see where there's a machine boss right there, and that's just going to slide inside your tube, so it pretty well lines itself up. But like I say, we always double check and triple check to make sure. So now we're going to take the tube over here to the saw. So we're going to set up our saw and take that 2 3/4 off. So all we got to do now is bevel and prep, and then we'll start putting it back together. We got that looking good. We got it prepped out and ready to go. So now I'm going to prep this piece. We didn't do a whole lot of bevel on the tube itself, because it's just not necessary. It's a very thin wall. So we'll go back together. We have to be very particular about how we do this. So you definitely want to take time and make sure you get started in good and square. That way you're not fighting it later. It's looking good. I like it. It's got a really good fit to it, and really tight, and I like that. It looks good. I'm very happy with that. So now we're going to set up, we're going to weld it out. Now, with this being such a light wall, I'm not worried about going with like a low hydrogen or anything like that. We're just going to tack it up, wire weld it out, clean it up, and move on to the next one. Alright, we've got everything set up and ready to weld. Now, even though it does sleeve in and it pretty well holds itself, you still want to go around and put, tacks on every quarter, because if I just start welding on one side, it is going to pull the shaft off center, and you don't want that, especially not on the drive shaft. Now I've got some good tacks on. I'm going to go back around with a hard rock and just give myself an easy bevel to weld, and then we'll sew it up. I'll show you guys this. You can see the tack up on it. And then we've got it beveled good. So, because we want to reach in and weld to the very bottom of that bevel and bring it out. So we're setting ourselves up for success. That is the key. A little preparation Makes a big difference. I'm gonna back off my heat just a little bit. I'm going to roll just to make sure everything works right. And it does, so here we go. There we go. So now we're just going to clean that up. Little wire brush, a little buff. And then we should be good to go on that one. We'll reassemble it. Move on to the next one. Slide everything back together. We know what our orientation was. That one's done. Now let's bring in the next one. Now on this one, you can see how it's got the reduce on both ends. So if it was just a straight shaft with the same diameter shaft all the way up and down, you do the same thing that we did the last time. You just take the weld out, and then come in, shorten it, and do what you got to do. But with this one, we don't have that option because it is sweated down on both ends, reduced. So what we're going to do is we're going to come right to the middle of it, and I'm going to take it out of the middle. And it's more difficult to do it this way, but it can be done this way. So we'll do that. We'll set us up either a channel or something to put it in to help us with alignment, and we'll get it all back together. So I'm going to just do some markings because it is balanced, and I want to make sure that all those stay the same where they were. But most times the balance is offsetting the weight between the two yokes. So I want to make sure that I align it exactly like it is right now, just shorter. So we'll put us a straight mark down everything, and then we'll cut it out because I think we've got to remove about 12 inches off of this one. Okay, so we've got everything lined out. I've stayed a little closer to this end. It'll be a little easier for me to square up because I'm going to double check with 2 squares. And we've got our marks so that we can realign everything. And now we're going to go to the saw, make the cuts here, and bevel clean up, get everything ready to go, and put it all back together. Okay, we're going to get our grounding all hooked up. So we've got everything beveled up and ready to go. We're going to lock it into this angle iron and start our tack up. Now just because you stick a piece of pipe in an angle iron and start tacking up, that doesn't mean it's perfect. So what you want to do is just basically just going to help me get started with my tack up. And then we're going to be double checking and triple checking everything with 2 squares. I'll show you how we do that. See a lot of pipe fitters do this. Now, if you know of a better way, you know, because I'm sure since I've learned this, there's probably a lot of high-tech, better ways of doing your alignment on these. Please leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. So we're just going to get us a button tack here, and then we're going to start working our way around. And like I say, this is a very light wall tube. I'm not even real sure what it is, the exact type of material that it is, but you can bet on it. I'm going to find out right quick. So now we can take 2 squares, set them up, and that's pretty well going to give you almost a perfect exact. And like I say, the key is to take your time, make sure you're right. The worst thing you can be, especially on like a shaft job or something, is almost right. So it needs to pull just a touch. So I'm going to reach out here and give it a little tack that way. It'll pull just a touch. That's really good. That's really good. So now I'm I'm going to buff those tacks just a little bit because I don't want anything holding it up. And we're going to go to the other side, tack opposite, and then check them out.
Set it up, and I'm going to swap over from wire. We're going to set everything up, and we're going to TIG this together because it's just such a thin material. I think we'll be able to control our heat a lot better. All I've done so far is I just went back through and put tacks in between my original tacks because, like I say, it is a very light wall. So we want to make sure, you know, nothing flexes or moves. So we're going to go around it with TIG. The first time around it, I'm going to try not to use hardly any filler metal. I just want to strictly fusion in the lower part of the bevel because there's not much bevel because there's just not much pipe there. And then we'll probably cool it off with the fan and let it set for a minute and rest. And then we'll go around and put a cap bead on it. So this is going to be just a real quick walk around. We're just going to make sure that we fuse in the very bottom of that little small bevel. That's it. So now we're going to polish it up good. You know me, I like to prep. So, you know, I'm going to set things up so I can have the best shot at success I can have. Now we basically have got a root in there. So now we're going to set up the fan. I'm going to cool it off because it is so thin. If you get it too hot, well then you're fighting to get a nice looking bead on it. And you can also cause degradation to the material also, so we don't want that. So throw a fan on it, only takes a few minutes. Let's cool it back down to a nominal temperature and then we'll start again. And if halfway through welding it I feel like it's getting too hot, I'll just stop and cool it back off. These little blower fans work great. And like I said, it's only a few minutes, so just take the extra time to do it right, and you'll only have to do it once. Alright, I got everything cooled down good. I've switched over to my jack stands, because as I weld, I don't want to do a lot of little, 2-inch long welds. I want to reach around and at least cover roughly a third, if not half of it. So, like I said, we're going to see how our heat goes on that also. If it's giving me trouble, we'll cool it back down. I have backed my temp off just a little bit, so it should be good to go. I'm using a 332 tungsten and running roughly 60 amps. Because like I say, this thing, if it's a 16th thick, it's not much over that at all. I don't know that it is over that at all. 332 tungsten, so we can control our heat, stay down low. We've also already polished up our rod good. We're using I think it's an ER70S, which is more than comparable for what we're doing. So, let's see what we can do with it. This is what the finish is going to look like on it. It's a nice clean bead, good and even all the way around. So we're going to cool it off. We'll fill in the little pop off where the pressure built up, and then it's good to go. So I'll bring you guys back. Well, really that's it. Once we get done with this, we're going to call the customer. He can pick it up and that's good to go, and that'll be all of that little project. Questions, comments, please ask them. a better way to do something, please let me know about it. And we'll see you on the next one.